All right, guys, we are back. It is the what the hell episode is this now? This is the 5th episode. I believe.
You know, the fact that we're losing count of what number podcast is, it means that we're having some level of success.
I know. Well, if you guys have been listening, thank you very much. In case all of you were wondering if we're doing part 3 of our Star Wars podcast, no, that is not going to happen. That's all done.
Thankfully ended. We're not going to do a whole episode on the Christmas special. Yeah. We've lost our abacus. We don't know what episode this is, but I do know that we have a very special guest on this installment of the podcast.
Yes, we absolutely do. And of course, I'm Christian.
This is Mark talking now.
And right next to us, always, who is helping us out with the sound.
3, 2, 1.
John Cheeser.
The Cheese. Nice Cheese. How you doing, Cheese?
I'm very well.
Nice to see you.
We have a very special and beautiful guest today.
We have a very beautiful guest.
Well, that's nice of you guys to say, but we also have a very good another guest here, too.
Look at you. You're on top of it today, kid. You're on top of it. I like it. All right. So if you guys are familiar with the Schmoes Know Show, we just did the You Reviewers Awards. And our next guest was very nice to come on to that show, and she also did a classic review with us of The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm. She got me to see The Princess Bride. I refused to see it for the longest time, and then you said that she is doing a review of it.
I know, we're going to talk about it. Relax.
All this build up.
That's right. She is a friend of the show. She's a friend of ours, the lovely and talented Bonnie Somerville. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, guys. Yay.
Bonnie, I apologize for such a great build-up.
I feel like I'm spent already.
Like, if we said anybody other than Judy Garland, I know. I get disappointed.
I know.
It's true. It's Liz Taylor. We brought her back. All right. So, Bonnie, first of all, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We are buddies. We know that.
We're buddies. We're buddies in real life, too.
That's right.
I was a bridesmaid at your wedding.
She was a bridesmaid in my wife's wedding.
And from what I'm told, that was a tremendous ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Mark was at my wedding, although we don't know.
We don't know if he was actually at your wedding. We don't know.
Hey, the plane, Van Halen.
Mark left the wedding after the ceremony. Then my drunk twin showed up.
Right. No, your drunk twin showed up and cut quite the rug with the bride's mom. Which is something never to be forgotten.
So you brought it up, buddy.
It takes two to tango, Bonnie.
We're going to get into some stuff with Bonnie. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that she's done in the past, some of the stuff that she's coming up in the future with, and I'm excited about it. One of the things that I don't think I've ever mentioned to Bonnie that I wanted to bring up, because I think, Bonnie, you got your start, correct me if I'm wrong, you were an extra in the movie City Hall.
That's right, my first job ever.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
City Hall.
City Hall.
The fact that you remember that. The fact that you know that.
Hey, I'm a big Pacino. I actually saw that movie with Pacino. This is a movie with Pacino and John Cusack. The movie came out in 1996.
Wow.
There were a lot of courtroom dramas, like John Grisham movies were huge around then, so there's a lot of stuff going on in a courtroom.
But this was post-Heat, so I was very excited to see another, the Pacino, and the movie itself was a bit of a letdown, but...
it was supposed to be a big movie, though.
Right, but
it was hyped up.
It was boring as
piss. It was so boring.
Yeah.
Incredible extras,
it had
though.
The
extras in that movie were phenomenal.
The extras on that movie.
So what was what was the scene that you're in?
I actually waited for 12 hours to online. I was submitting headshots to get extra work, and I waited for 12 hours. They said show up at 4. I got a call from Central Casting in New York, and I was like, Mom, oh my God, they picked me. I had no idea what it was going to be. I thought it was like a big deal.
Right.
12 hours I waited online because that's what they do with actors, and sometimes they use you, sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't believe I didn't bring a book. I didn't know anything. I just sat there for 12 hours looking at people. They had like tents, they had blankets, they had pillows. These were like professional extras.
How to be an extra books.
Seriously, right? I had nothing. And they finally picked me, and I was praying, like, please give me a prime spot. And they sat me behind, 2 rows behind Al Pacino and Vinny Aiello. Remember him?
Yeah, totally. You can see be seen in the movie.
You can see me. Oh, okay. And I remember specifically just not knowing. It was so unbelievably intimidating. The cameras, everything. I was just the whole time I was completely in shock. I was just like, oh my God.
So that was your first shoot ever of anything?
Ever in my life. And I got one SAG card, one SAG thing.
Wow. Like the voucher. Out of the 3, right? So.
And if I can ask you a question about being an extra, because and I'm not joking, were you good in the movie?
No.
Because you know how sometimes you can see extras in the movie, like there's a big shot, and you have the 2 main characters in front, and then there's all these extras in back. It never fails. One extra always looks right in the camera.
Right in the camera.
And just kills that fourth.
Bad extras.
Always. Or they say to, mime talking and dancing. And there's so many movies that I love to actually rewind and go look at this extra right now, and they will be like doing the most ridiculous mime. You know, it's always
Like have their hands up on the glass.
Yeah. And I did that. I was bad. I was totally bad.
So
I was so nervous.
Well, so you went from there, and then you did modeling and stuff before or after?
Kind of during.
Okay.
I wasn't really very good at that.
He's like, I was hot, so...
Yeah, well, that was the thing. That's what you wouldn't...
I was in a band, mostly.
Okay, well, that's one of the things that we should definitely talk about as well, is that Bonnie's actually very... an amazing singer, actually, too. But one of the things that people don't realize when they see Bonnie, you see this Bonnie, she's like this tall, gorgeous blonde, but she's like from Flatbush, Brooklyn, right? And but for most people who don't know that, like my buddy John came out from the wedding, and he's like, "Where's Bonnie from?" I know she's from New York, at Flatbush. She's not from Flatbush. Like Flatbush is like hardcore, dude. Where's she really from? You got it wrong. I'm like, no, dude, she's from Flatbush. He's like, you're full of shit. Walks up, Bonnie, where are you from? Flatbush. She's like, dude, that girl's gangster. Like Flatbush, you don't.
Flatbush is where people say they're from when they're really from like somewhere.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, you're not from Detroit, you're from Auburn Hills.
Right.
No, that's true. People have always said that to me. They're like, no, really, where are you from? And I'm like, no, really, I'm from East Flatbush. I mean, and they're like, no, you're not, because people say that to be gangster. It's true.
There
were some white Irish families in Flatbush at the time.
But the difference, though, is again, like when you see
no longer,
no,
you see like again, you guys know who Bonnie is, and if you're not familiar, do a Google image search, and you see like that woman is not from Flatbush. You know,
in addition to appearing as a guest on the Schmo, she's also done some other minor things in her career as well. But every time you see a picture of her, it's this gorgeous blonde. You'd think that she's.
Can I just come here every day?
Yeah. Bonnie, when I first met you, I was like, oh, you're the girl that Billy Joel sings about in Uptown Girl, and you're actually in real life much closer to Billy Joel, the guy singing.
Yeah. She'll do a great model shoot for you, and then if she doesn't like it, she'll stab you.
That's true. That's true. I like to say cut you.
That's right. Okay, cut. I apologize.
But I don't talk like this anymore unless I'm drunk or tired. You've heard me talk like this, Christian.
I know. I have.
Christian might have seen me drunk once or twice.
Okay, so then from there, now I know this. We're kind of jumping on here and there, but
this is your life.
I love it.
I know. Well, I want
to go through your.
I don't think
for those people who are familiar, they'll like it. And for those people who aren't familiar, they get to know kind of what Bonnie's done.
For people who aren't familiar, Google me, bitch.
That's right. See, that's that Flatbush
coming out, my friend.
Flatbush style. So, all right, we know that we're big superhero fans, and of course, Green Lantern is coming out. Bonnie has a little familiarity with our Green Lantern. There was a TV show called Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
I love that show.
Bonnie was on that show.
That was my first speaking
ever
on television.
What did you do? Tell us about that.
I played a girl that went into the pizza place that Ryan Reynolds' character was trying to distract a guy by setting him up with me. And I remember I had one line, and I said, is he going to really come with us? Yeah. Okay, thanks. And I walked away. And then they gave me another line later on.
Nice.
They added a scene, and it was like, I was so excited. So I got Taft-Hartley, which was a huge deal, to get in the union, because I needed to get in the union desperately to get some insurance, because I was like living month to month and taking the bus in LA, which was not fun.
So after City Hall, you went from New York they shot that in New York.
They shot that in New York.
Okay, and then you came from.
No, I was in New York for a while because I was in a band.
Okay.
We actually had a record due. We actually got signed to RCA.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so that was like a 2 year and a half of my life, and then we got dropped from RCA, and the album never came out. And I said, you know what? I'm just gonna try to go to LA. I'm just gonna go. And I thought, like, I'm gonna go to LA. I'm gonna get off the plane and get a movie career, an Oscar, TV show, and no.
Right.
No. Cut to maybe 4 years later, I got my first speaking role.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Later. Wow.
Yeah.
So you came out. So you did come out though to be an actress, not to sing.
No, I honestly, I always wanted to act, but singing was something I always did, and that just kind of helped pay the bills because I was always in a band, and I would just and I love to sing, and I'm a musician, so.
That's very.
It's nice when singing is paying the bills.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to get gigs at weddings, and I was in a wedding band, and I played a bunch of bar mitzvahs, and I'm telling those are good gigs when you're like waiting tables and you have nothing. And
when singing is your version of waiting tables, that's pretty sweet.
But I mean, I'm also a musician. I mean, I love both. But yeah, I mean, I was lucky that I got some pretty good paying gigs.
That's another thing. YouTube, Bonnie and Jake Walden's rendition of "Bleeding Love." It's really it's a very good version of the song, and the first time I heard it was I think you guys did it around 2 years ago or so when I saw it. It's a really good version.
We're actually doing a gig together on May 24th at Hotel Cafe.
Oh, really?
Anybody in LA want to come by?
Yeah, we'll be there. But But let's jump real quick from
that was the first speaking role.
To her first speaking role, and then this is kind of, I know that you did some stuff in between there, but where I think a lot of people will definitely recognize Bonnie is from a little show they called Friends.
Yeah.
Bonnie, of course, played Mona in Friends. Now, take us through, first of all, where you got the phone call that you were auditioning for Friends, and kind of the whole process, because that had to be insane at that point.
Crazy,
the biggest show in the world at that moment.
The biggest show. That was in 2007. That was when
2007.
Yeah, that's season. I did season
7.
Oh, sorry, I did season 7.
Yeah. I was like, there's a reunion?
No. Sorry, I did season 7, and that was when Jen was married to Brad Pitt. That was when Monica and Chandler were getting married. That was the only season they won an Emmy. No, I'm not gonna, say that's. Right. I mean, you can take that as whatever you want, but that was the only time they won an Emmy. Right. So my agent's like, yeah, there's an audition for the wedding episode 1, episode 1 of season 7. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, who didn't want to be on Friends?
Right. Did you know it was a recurring role at that?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't. It was episode 1 at the wedding.
Okay.
Ross meets this girl, and it was a funny thing that he's distracted. He meets this woman, Mona, and it was just supposed to be 1 episode. And the whole entire time was surreal. I mean, I auditioned for it. I left Warner Brothers lot. I was like, oh God, if I could just be on this one show.
Were you a fan of the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, by this point, it was a juggernaut.
Right.
I mean,
so you're walking off the lot. How did you feel the audition went?
I was so nervous, honestly. I think I was trying to be funny, but I had no idea. I was just really nervous because it was with all the producers.
Yeah,
Marta Kaufman and like the big, the 100-pound gorillas.
Right. You can stroll into a casting office and not be nervous in an audition. But once you actually get on the lot, like you have to get security clearance.
Yeah.
When you have to get security clearance to go on an audition, that's big time stuff.
Yeah, I was so nervous. I mean, it was so big time. I mean, even the offices were like obscene. Right. I mean, just so successful. Those are just.
Do you like to take a shower before the?
Yeah, that's like going to an audition. I auditioned once at Imagine. Like you walk into Imagine, the offices. I mean, you're just like. Dude, like the sprinklers are gonna go off if I don't do well in here.
All the posters and stuff they've done, like it's.
It's so intimidating. So I'm leaving the lot, and I actually got in my car, and my agent called me, and he's like, "You booked it." They called right away.
Wow, they knew right away, huh?
And because it was shooting, I think it was a Friday. They were shooting Monday, and it was the best day. Right. I was so excited. I called everybody at home, called my mom, called everyone in Brooklyn. And even just showing up
gunshots were going off in the street.
Yeah, everybody. Everyone's banging their pots and pans outside, like Happy New Year!
Hey, we're gonna make it.
But I literally showed up Monday, and Warner Brothers and I had a parking spot outside stage 12.
They gave you a spot out. Wow.
And I thought, this is
legit.
I'm doing it. I'm really doing it. And I was so intimidated and so scared.
Right.
I kind of stayed out of the way. Mm-hmm. It was fun. It was great.
Did you get to hang out with the cast at all, off stage?
Please.
Not when it started.
No.
Right.
They were like, hi, how are you? Nobody was ever rude, but they were not like, come hang out with us, you know. And it was just one scene, so it was just in the wedding at like the end, and it was great, and it was my first tape night in front of a live audience. I mean, it was just so wonderful. Like it was like, holy shit, I'm doing something great. Right. And then the producers come up to me and go, hey, you're really funny. We'd love to have you back. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Thinking, yeah, right. You want to have me back, sure. And my agent called me and said, guess what? They just wrote you in 3 more episodes. And
that's
then
awesome.
I did 3 more episodes, and then it was. So they just booked you for another 2.
Wow. How many did you do total?
8.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think, I am a Trivial Pursuit answer on the Friends version. Who played Mona?
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That is really cool, actually. So the first time you worked with Schwimmer, and because you have to like get this chemistry down.
Well, yeah.
Him, so how did you guys get along?
He was the greatest. He was actually the most generous actor. Like he was like, so you want to try anything? He was so like made me feel, because I was really intimidated. Right. I mean that was like the biggest stars I'd ever seen in person, and they were sitting at the same table as me. Like it's like, they're talking, they're gossiping, and I'm sitting there
trying not to be starstruck.
Totally. Brad Pitt shows up and brings Coffee Bean one day. I almost lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, Brad Pitt brought Coffee Bean for Jen. I mean, I'm not kidding.
It's a lot different when Ellis brings it for you.
Yeah. Oh, Ellis brought me a Coffee Bean today.
Yeah.
So sweet.
Is Brad Pitt gonna get that order right?
That's right. Exactly.
You got everything right.
Yeah. The difference is when Brad Pitt brings you, it doesn't matter what he gets you just drink it.
Seriously.
He doesn't even give it to you. He just dumps it on his body.
Yeah.
On his shirtless body.
It was just a crazy time and I remember showing up on set for tape nights and people were like camped out in the street to try to get tickets.
Right.
And it was the biggest year. That was like Friends had that huge, they were #1 every week. They had this huge comeback. It was insane.
No, I told you that's.
And then, this is funny. Matt LeBlanc says to me after, and also Paul Rudd did the season I did, which was part of his comeback. Because if you remember, Paul Rudd was dead. He was dead.
Yeah.
He had not worked. He had not done any.
Clueless, and then like a couple things.
Disappeared.
He was the Lazarus of the film community.
He played Phoebe's boyfriend the year that I played Mona.
Oh, wow.
So Paul and I would hang out, and I knew him from Clueless, but he wasn't the Paul Rudd you know now.
Right.
You know, he was like just trying to get like work again.
Comedy juggernaut now.
And then the Halloween episode where I played the slutty nurse, Sean Penn guest starred. That was insane. I was like, I'm working with Sean Penn. Like, I get to say I worked with Sean Penn.
Right.
Even though he was across the room.
Whatever.
I still worked with him.
That was. I mean, that's got to be especially when it's like your first really big gig.
Especially when I've been I was trying for 7 years. I was, busting my ass and doing so many things.
So what happens then? That's actually a good transition then, because it's like, what happens when you go in after just kind of working here and there, a couple things, then you go from being on the biggest show on television, and then you do an 8-episode arc, and then when that's done, what is life like for Bonnie Somerville after that?
Well, I was going to say, Matt LeBlanc said one day, he said, just so you know, the second this episode airs, people are going to know who you are. And I was like, please. This was the wedding episode, which was episode 1.
Right.
And I only had that little scene at the end. And I said, no, they won't. And he's like, I'm telling you, they will. And he was kind of complaining about his life, which I was thinking like, yeah, all right, you jerk off. Like, seriously? You're complaining about your life. Like, he's like, I can't go anywhere. And I'm thinking, at the time, I'm like living month to month going, shut up.
Like the monkey baseball movie.
Yeah, and his Ferrari is parked outside. And this was the year that
Monkey's driving the Ferrari.
Yeah, this was the year that I did, was the year they negotiated for the $1 million an episode.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And I was there that day, actually. And nobody came to work. And the first AD said, it's going to be a little while. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, they're doing negotiations. I was on one of those weeks, and I just sat in my room and waited, and then they sent me home.
Wow.
That was a crazy day, too.
Yeah.
Bonnie is responsible for a lot of stuff.
I know.
She got Friends and Emmy.
Right.
Yeah.
She got the cast $1 million.
Right.
She told them, hey, drop the pizza place from 2 guys, a girl, and a pizza
Seriously.
That's right.
But he said that to me, and I thought, there's no way. And I'll never forget that one episode ran, that wedding episode, and I was at Ralph's. And I'm just, shopping, and someone was like, hey, Mona!
Wow, that's the first episode?
First episode. And then from that day on, now, no matter what I do, people... Last night, I was at Birds eating, and someone said, were you Mona? And it's been...
Wow.
Yeah.
That someone was me, and I apologize for forgetting your real name.
It's probably Stevens, actually.
That's right.
Seriously, though, it's funny. That show it will never die. Like that.
I mean, it's one of it's like one of the best sitcoms of all time.
I have my Central Perk sweatshirt that I wear every Sunday.
And you have a part of it.
That was crazy. I did steal something from the Central Perk.
Did you really?
Set,
What did you steal?
It was just like a little bowl, but I was like, I gotta take something.
NBC is on line 2.
Great.
NBC is on line 2.
It was like a little bowl, but I was like, I gotta take something. I mean,
that's right. They shut down this podcast almost last week because of the Star Wars song. Now we're gonna get shut down because Bonnie stole from Central Perk. Way to go. Okay, so where we went from Friends, obviously.
Friends.
Now when did In-Laws come into play?
That was the next. That was because of Friends. I actually got the pilot because NBC liked me a lot, and they were like, we want to put her in something, and. So In-Laws was
Elon Gold, correct?
Elon Gold, Gene constantly got a deal, but that was actually the story of his life. That was a true story. Him and his wife moved in with her parents, and they had no money, and he did a bit on it. That was his whole bit, living with his in-laws.
Right.
And he turned it into a pilot, and it was a really funny pilot. I love that pilot.
Yeah, I mean, I
that was thanks to Friends. That was
okay.
Really
so how many episodes did?
We did 17.
Wow, that's okay.
Canned.
Wow, 17.
So that was like a season. Like they let it go. It debuted in September or October, right?
September, and then we didn't go to 22, which is a full season. But
right.
And let me ask you this: so you're on this show and you're watching it, and it's doing, it's doing okay in the ratings. But I mean, are you every week just waiting for that report to come out as far as what the ratings are? You're waiting for the phone call. Is that just? It's got to wreak havoc on your nerves, right?
It's terrible. I mean, after doing 8 series and none of them making it past a year, you just get so used to that. Every day the numbers come in, everyone's down, the producers are down, like the stress, you feel it it's always there in the air. And I've never been on a show other than Friends, which wasn't my show, where that wasn't an issue. So it's like I'm so used to it's just it sucks because it really you love the show, you love the people, and you're waiting every week. You're like, good news? No.
Right.
And you feel it go every week, like.
It's like a camp that it's like they haven't got. It's like everyone's having fun, but the food's just not that great yet. They haven't been able to spend the money on the really good food yet, and they're waiting for it. They're like, okay, we're gonna get that pizza in there.
Yeah, you're
soon.
in Camp Winnipesaukee. You're not gonna have Brad Pitt come bring you coffee.
No, that's never been. I've never had that.
No, I'm sure that's amazing. But in-laws kind of but it's still like, but you get your chops in regardless.
Yeah, I mean and also Jean Smart, was one of my comedy heroes growing up watching Designing Women. I mean, is one of the most funny women on the planet and so wonderful, taught me so many things about comedy. I mean, I got her and Shelley Long were on my list of people to work with, and I just did a movie with Shelley Long.
That's awesome.
She played my mom, and I was like, it's still amazing. Like, are you kidding? Like, I'm working with people that as a kid, I was like,
right.
I want to be a comedian on a sitcom.
But that's the thing, is that you've reached a lot of these things that, again, like working on a show like Friends and then going to be like, I want to work with Shelley Long. You like, it's just like you can see it when you're a kid, like your goals that you want to do.
Well, when it starts happening and you realize, like, I watched Cheers every week. My mom was obsessed with Cheers, Sam and Diane. I mean, every week. That was like the big thing in our house was Cheers. So when I worked with her, I was like, I would look at her all the time and go, oh my God, like I watch every week. I was like, are they going to get married? Are they going to get together?
Right.
No, my parents never got over Shelley Long. Shelley Long she looks exactly like my mom. My mom is like a dead ringer for Shelley Long.
My mom too.
And so when Kirstie Alley came in, my dad was just done with the show. He's like, yeah, Norm's still funny, but I don't know who this brunette chick is.
No, right. I mean she was pretty huge as for female comedy. I mean, her and Jean Smart were like, and Designing Women at the time, I think was the only show that ever had a full cast of women that was a hit.
Right.
So it was like a big deal.
Golden Girls.
Well, that was after Designing Women.
Oh, that's true. That's right.
So it was just cool.
And B. Arthur was in that cast, so you can't really say
that's
all
true.
Meanwhile, Betty White's like, just as famous now as she was.
It's amazing. But okay, so we're going from in-laws. Here's something that I actually didn't know until I did a little research.
This is more research than we do on the Schmo show, by the way.
This is something that I think that would be interesting, because I want to see. I've never talked to her about this, and I want to see the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Now, Bonnie was in an episode of the Twilight Zone.
I did not know that Bonnie was 80 years old, but congratulations.
No, they did. They did that revamp.
Terrific thing.
They did that revamp of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, the revamp.
Yeah, and then what was your episode? What did you do?
It was called How Much Do You Love Your Kid? And it was really cool, actually, because it was the first time I got a job. I got to go to Canada, Vancouver, shot in Vancouver, which was, I'd never gone anywhere. So that was cool, like first class ticket, go to Vancouver. And it was a really great episode about, there's this game show called How Much Do You Love Your Kid? And it's like, what would you do? What would you do for your kid? And my husband fakes the kid's death, and I'm on this game show, and they're telling me, like, you have 60 seconds to, fakes my son's kidnapping, and they say you have 60 minutes to find your kid. But it, like, goes awry, and it goes crazy. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I find out that it was a joke, and I kill my husband.
No.
But it was just a really cool, and I got to do my own stunts. Right. And actually, the guy who played the talk show host...
So it's a comedy.
It was. Usually comedy. But the guy that played the talk show host was Newman.
Wayne Knight. Wow.
Wayne Knight.
Look at that.
The guy that made everything go right in Jurassic Park. Can
you find that episode? Do you have that episode?
I have it on tape, yeah, but I'm sure it's somewhere.
I'm sure.
It was actually really fun, though, because I'd never done... It was my first time doing anything like...
Because you've been jumping to comedies and everything, too.
So I got to, like, run and jump some fences and stuff.
That's awesome. If you guys out there can find that episode, send it to us, because I want to see it.
That was a cool episode. And that was also, too, what Forrest Whitaker did the revamp. So it was kind of...
Yeah, it was legit. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I remember. Now, did you go from the Twilight Zone to the OC? Is that where... Or a couple things in between?
The Twilight Zone was right after Grosse Pointe, the show, first Darren Star show I did.
Right.
The OC was the first season I did.
Okay, the first season of OC. So I know that was a good season to do.
Which was, that was another thing too. They sent me this script and they were like, "We want you to audition for this guest star." And I was like, I was out of work for 10 months. Mm-hmm. It's like new show about these kids in the OC. I'm like, oh yeah, this will be, no one will ever see this. Cut to. That show comes out. It's like the biggest show ever.
It was huge.
That show exploded, and then
away.
And then it just fizzled after what? The second season.
Well, they didn't know what to do with it. Yeah, they did 4. I think it started to crap out in like mid January.
Then you got Laguna Hills, and then now.
But that came out with a bang. I mean, they did so much press for that on Fox. It was unbelievable.
And you did first season.
I did the first. Yeah, I did the first 10.
Now, because of that, was it the same kind of, because it was a pretty big show, were you starting to get a lot of,
but that was like, again, it was another like kind of random, like it was supposed to be a couple episodes, then they put, more, so I was pretty lucky. And all my stuff was with Peter Gallagher, who I loved, who was a wonderful, great guy, and I didn't have to work with the kids too much.
Right, was
that
the
kids? Great eyebrows on Peter Gallagher.
The kids, I didn't have to work with the kids.
That one kid just annoyed me. That's why I could never watch the show. The nose kid, I could never could watch that show. The lead with the nose. What's his
Benjamin?
name? Benjamin?
He's on that show.
Yeah. He is on that show. He's actually. I don't love that show.
He's so good on Southland, though.
You're right. I'm not gonna. I absolutely agree.
I was surprised how good he was on Southland. I think that character was just, people run into trouble when they play brooding teenagers.
I agree with you, and I think that's the problem that I had when I first saw the first episode of it. It was like, I'm upset, and I want to fight everyone.
Yeah,
it's
there's millions of kids right now that would trade their lives to be an orphan or whatever the hell he was in the OC. There's a lot of kids that wouldn't complain too much about that.
That's fair. So I guess I have seen him and stuff.
It's like 90210 when they do the brooding kid stuff, and you have 27-year-olds playing teenagers.
Right. He's done stuff that just has not. You know what he was in that it wasn't his fault, but the role was just terrible. Was that 88 Minutes piss bomb that we saw? Remember that?
The OC kid was in that?
Yeah, he was the main kid that kept calling Al Pacino out.
I tuned that movie.
I didn't even see that.
No one did.
Al Pacino didn't have a great extra like Bonnie.
Speaking of great extras, and I'm interested why you did this, and I always wanted to ask you this. Was now I guess I understand why you did it, but Spider-Man 2.
Oh, I knew you were going there.
Spider-Man 2. There's a scene in Spider-Man 2 where if you watch it, it's right as Doc Ock is climbing up, this blonde comes running over, she runs into the camera, and she screams at the top of her lungs.
And then he breaks through the wall.
Yeah.
And then I scream again.
Now, did you do that just to work on Spider-Man 2?
Yes.
Okay, that makes
sense.
And
it was called, and they credited, my agents who were great, credited it as a cameo, which is come on, it wasn't a cameo. But I guess there's this cool thing in the business, which I didn't know, which really is total BS, but people say if they're uncredited, it's cool. It's like a cameo. But meanwhile, it's basically you're just an extra. But to make people feel better, they say you're gonna do it and you're gonna be uncredited.
Right.
Yeah, if you're already famous, then uncredited is a kind of
right.
Cool
but if you're
thing.
Me and you're trying to work and with Sam Raimi, and but I had to audition for that. And
really?
Auditioning and just screaming is probably one of the most embarrassing. I mean, you got to give credit to good horror films that people screaming because it's not easy to do. You're standing in a little room.
No, the scream was good. You can see that.
And I worked on that for 2 weeks.
Yeah, wow.
And that was the 2 seconds. And you saw 2 seconds. But that was cool to watch how that went down because I'd never been on a big movie. That was my first big budget.
Okay.
And I just sat on set all day, even when I wasn't needed, and just watched. And
that's going to be pretty cool.
That was insane to watch.
Actually, and that's funny, though, too, because the reason I also mentioned Spider-Man 2, and Mark had mentioned before about how extras try to overdo it. Some of the extra work in Spider-Man 2 is atrocious.
Oh, in the train scene.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
They're so bad.
I watched that. I hung out on set one day when I didn't have to work, so I could watch the train. And I
great scene.
Oh, I was fascinated. The train's up on these things. And just to watch how people do make movies, to me, is so fascinating. But I remember watching some people, screaming and thinking, maybe bring it back a little bit.
Right, exactly.
Maybe I want to turn it down a little bit.
That is really funny.
And it's like you're practicing your scream. I got an old woman that lives next to me that's been practicing her scream for 3 years.
Yeah.
I hope she books that role soon.
Seriously.
Right. Well, and here's the thing that Bonnie had mentioned earlier, that she, got to work with some of these people that she just, she worked with Sean Penn, and she worked with all these big wigs, Jennifer Aniston and Margot Kidder. Oh, no, sorry, Courtney Cox. Then there was all these other people that she had worked with. One person she did not mention, she mentioned Shelley Long, but you didn't mention that you worked with Zach Morris, a.k.a. Saved by the Bell.
Paul Gosler, really?
Yeah, she worked with on NYPD Blue.
Last season of NYPD.
Wow. How was that dude?
He was all right.
You can just wink at me if you don't want to talk about it.
No, he was all right. I mean, that was the last season. I got to do the full last season, which was, again, another amazing show to be a part of because it was 12 seasons and NYPD Blue kind of changed television. I mean, it did change television.
Yeah,
The first time you could see Dennis Franz's ass on TV was
the first time anyone ever cursed. I mean, even the camera work on that show just changed the way they shot TV.
Right.
But he was all right. He was very serious. He was because I sat and, I replaced Charlotte Ross as the new detective in season 12. Mm-hmm. So you know how all the deaths are all together. He was very serious. He really took that job seriously.
Didn't have a big cell phone or anything? Or
No big cell phone.
Right.
Did he ever call timeout on set and everybody had to freeze?
Right.
Saved by the Bell, I'm telling you, man. Like
I never watched it. So when people said you're
unbelievable.
I know it's a kids show, and it started on Saturday mornings, and it was for kids. I think Zach Morris is one of the best sitcom characters of all time.
It is the best. It is the best worst.
Better than Screech.
Listen, it is the best worst show of all time.
But you know what about Zach Morris in particular? There was like Screech is like he was a good comic relief for the kids or whatever. But Zach Morris, like, it was a great character. He really nailed that character. He really did. I mean, it was.
What about Mario Lopez?
Cool guy.
Well, he was great, but he wore all those leotards and stuff, and he just threw himself out of the race.
That was an era, though. That's literally a time capsule. Like,
that
absolutely. Show is a time, because I dressed like that. I mean, I had big hair. We wore scunchies, leggings.
Everything about that show was. I mean, you literally watched that show. It was.
It was worse than that show, though. The
California Dream.
I was just gonna say.
But it's not better, though. It's worse, but it's not better.
Like, it's not bad worse. It's worse.
California Dreams is like a cover band of Saved by the Bell.
You totally understand how bad of a show Saved by the Bell was, but it was so much fun to watch, and you cared about all the characters.
I never watched it.
I loved it. I'll tell you this, Zach Morris is still much more. I would buy him as a real teenager, like that's that cool over anybody on 90210 or
because he was.
Or the OC.
But that's what I'm saying. You think you get recognized as Mona a lot?
Oh no,
that guy. He's gonna. Here lies Zach when the guy's 80 years old.
It's like working with it's like working with the other guy I worked with. God forbid you mention anything he did in the past, NPH.
Oh, right. We're going to get to that. We'll get to that.
Some people, they do not want any, and you're like...
Well, we will definitely... You don't have to talk about it. We will talk about it.
stuff as hard as anybody because he gets called Joey because it's such a recognizable more than, I bet, David Schwimmer gets Ross.
But I'm telling you, like, again, like...
Those guys were great actors.
A Mona or a Joey or a Ross, you go, okay, I do, like... Zach Morris is when you're 17 years old, you're Zach Morris for the rest of your life. Yeah. No matter how many cops you play or serial killers, you are Zach Morris.
And he's a really good actor. He is a really good... I don't know if you saw that last show he did on TNT. I forget the name of it. He's a really good actor.
If you've been watching any...
He's got a new... Or is that the one that just came out?
The Legal...
Franklin and Bash is the name of the new show, and you see constant ads for it when you're watching the playoffs.
I'm telling you, that's why he gets a lot of work, though, too, because everybody has that thing for Zach Morris. When he walks in, it's like, you know what? There are a couple people better, but it's Zach Morris. Let's give him the gig.
I don't think he wants to hear that.
Let's give him the gig. But that was so you went from again. So that's another serious role for the comedy kind of jumped off.
That was a big coup for me to get to because my grandfather was a New York police officer for 32 years. So that was cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
For him, that was like he'd have 3 martinis in a restaurant, and be like, "Have you seen my granddaughter on NYPD Blue?"
That's awesome.
And that was to him the coolest thing that he was really proud of me. So that was great.
No, that's really cool. And then you had the drama there. Then you went back to comedy with another guy who has kind of done well for himself, Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
Bitter,
table for one. Bitter, hello.
That would be Kitchen Confidential.
Which is such a good show.
Yeah, I mean,
which is out on Amazon. A lot of people are finding it now because now they do all these series, even the 1 year. So people are writing me fan mail or on Facebook like, hey, I just happened to rent Kitchen Confidential because they saw Bradley Cooper, and it's nice that those DVDs are available now for people.
Renazizi did a show.
Our buddy Steve Renazizi from the league also did was on an episode of that too.
I remember that.
Yeah.
It was such a funny. I mean, with John Cho. I mean, the cast was awesome. It was a great another Darren Star show, but it was a great show, really funny show, and based on the book by Anthony Bourdain, the chef.
Okay, and that episode and that show went how many episodes?
13.
Wow. Okay, and was that? I'm curious because I do remember everyone that ever watched that show raved about it.
It was
one of those.
Yeah.
Weird, I'm still not over that. I mean, my manager still talks about it. She's like, I'm still not over that we didn't get a chance. They buried it. You know, it kind of just got buried. And if you watch the episodes, it's really one of those shows that should have gotten a chance because the writing was spectacular. I mean, it was really funny.
I remember when it was out, and everyone that had watched it really said how much they liked it, and then it just kind of went away. I remember.
And John Francis Daly from Freaks and Geeks, now he's on Bones, but he was on it, and John Cho, me. I mean, it's just the cast was great.
Right.
We did an episode with John Larroquette, again, somebody else who was
as
a kid who was on my list, and I got to work with John Larroquette, and I sat across from him. I was like, I have a tally in my head of all these people, and I'm just like, I'm working with the guy from Night Court.
Yeah, when this podcast is done, go back and watch Stripes because John Larroquette crushes in that movie.
Crushes.
But that's Bonnie has worked with a lot of really great people, and she's
doing it right now.
I know. Well, we're gonna get to that. But
I'm talking about us.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well,
that's what I thought you were talking about.
But let's talk about another show that she had that again I remember hearing a lot about when it came out, and that was Kashmir Mafia.
Yeah.
Now, Cashmere Mafia was one that I guess...
That was the last one I did, yeah.
You know, I know that it caught a lot of comparisons because of Sex and the City that came out at that. Do you think that hurt you?
Yeah.
Maybe?
I mean, it was also Darren Star, again, my third Darren Star show, who was so good to me, but it was basically Sex and the City. It was 4 women living in the city, so I think that hurt it. And also, it was the same season as Lipstick Jungle.
Right. Okay. So,
that's NBC coming to arrest me for stealing that bowl.
Exactly. Didn't you? But that went full season as well.
No, actually, that was the last show I did. We only did 7 episodes, and then there was the writer's strike, and it was literally that was the craziest year too, because you kept hearing there's going to be a strike, and I'd never experienced the strike.
Mm-hmm.
I was literally like, remember in school when they'd be like, okay, pencils down right now. Like, remember those tests? Like, pencils down right now.
Yeah.
Writers were literally writing all night long just to get as many episodes, because you could shoot as many as you had already had turned in.
I remember that. Yeah.
And they were just writing.
And
it literally was like, put your pens down right now.
And as an actress during the writer's strike, did that affect your workload significantly?
Yeah.
Because it seems like you're right in that kind of level of fame where you can book something if everything's going well, but if everything shuts down,
it's shut down. And you can't do non-union work because you're in the union. So all the non-union people did a bunch of movies. There was a lot of stuff, but I couldn't do anything. And the show they only had 7 episodes shot. That was it. They ran out of episodes, and then when the strike came over, it was like 3 or 4 months. That was it. They canceled us. We never really got a chance to get off the air.
Now to refresh some of our, I know Lucy Liu,
Frances O'Connor from, Lord of the Rings.
Right.
No, sorry.
Lord of the Rings.
Miranda Otto was in Lord of the Rings, and Frances
O'Connor
was in, actually Bedazzled, which is a funny story. Another movie that I played an extra in, Bedazzled. My character's name was Girl at Beer Garden.
It's like Ellis every week.
That's my wife's character's name.
Yeah, Girl at Beer Garden was Frances O'Connor was the lead of Bedazzled. So when I did Cashmere Mafia with her, I was like, I was in that movie as an extra, and she was in the scene. She was like, "You're kidding!" And here I am playing like the lead opposite her.
That's so. But did you enjoy your experience on that show while you were on it?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, whatever.
I got to shoot in New York City for the first time ever, so that was pretty cool.
Okay.
To shoot in my hometown and to shoot on 5th Avenue is that's bananas. But I played a lesbian, so that was a little awkward.
Yeah, but I mean that's still got to be pretty. I mean I think that just listening to you all the stuff that you've done. I mean, so you seem like I think that a lot of actors and actresses kind of wish to do what you did. You did so much different stuff.
Yeah.
You did you do comedy and then some horror stuff and some drama, and you're really moving around is where you can, and then you take on this role. I think it's easier for a woman to, and not as far as playing the actual character, but it is acceptable and easier for a woman to play a lesbian.
Totally.
And then still be.
It's harder for guys to play lesbians. I'll give you that.
No, but
I've tried to pull it off a number of times.
What I mean,
you actually are a lesbian in real life.
Right, a lesbian softball coach by his own mouth.
That's right.
No, that I've been really lucky. I have worked. So I'm one of those people that always works. Like someone might not know who I am, but I always work, and I'm so lucky because I have gotten to do so many things with so many amazing people, and I do go back and forth comedy drama, which is really hard to do.
Yeah. But that's a tough line to straddle, and I like listening to you talk about this stuff because you do hear all these horror stories about people working in the business for so long and they get spoiled. But literally every show you've been on, whether it was a great learning experience or not, there's something positive to be taken from it.
Yeah,
everything.
To shoot in New York.
Sofia Vergara had the same thing though too. We had met her when I was working over at Warner Brothers, and she had a lot of the same stuff happen.
Like people kicking around for a long time.
Sofia
Vergara, she's on
Modern
Family, and she
ain't bad to look at.
It wasn't a tough meeting. But we were talking to her, and she literally would go through this stuff that she was just and she hadn't hit Modern Family yet, so she's just every show I get, it's it'll go a couple things, and then I just won't go, and then look at her now, she's on the biggest.
Did you have to excuse yourself from the meeting a couple times
Twice.
All right.
I'll tell you a funny inside story. I did a pilot right after Cashmere Mafia called Off Duty with Bradley Whitford and Romany Malco from 40-Year-Old Virgin, and I tested against Julie Bowen.
Oh wow.
I got Off Duty.
And she got Modern Family.
She got Modern Family. Wow. Off Duty didn't get picked up.
Wow. I got to give the point to Bowen on that one, Bonnie. I love you, but I got to give the point to
I look at that show now and I go, and I remember beating out Julie Bowen for the test, being like, yes, she's already had shows. She was on The Practice. She was on Ed.
The chick from Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah. And then now look at her. Now she's like
huge.
Like go cry into your big bag of money.
That's right, exactly. So, through TV. But here's another thing that a lot of people, actors and actresses, can't really do. A lot of this too. They go from TV and then actually get film roles too. I know a lot of actors and actresses try to get like these film roles. I know that there's a bunch of movies that you've done since, and a little roles too. That Ugly Truth, which I actually thought was a really funny movie. I thought it was going to be awful, but
it was cute.
You played Gerard Butler's sister in that. The other one, I know this is jumping a big spurt of time, was the one with Reese Witherspoon. How Do You Know? Right. I know that James Brooks had specifically wrote you a letter and told you how great you were.
Yeah, because my part was cut out. I did a lot of reshoots. I guess it didn't test well. The ending didn't test well, and I did a lot of reshoots, and I worked with him for 2 weeks. And again, another one of my heroes. I mean, like this is literally, I'm going to work going, oh my God, like. Right. I mean, Terms of Endearment, I mean, is one of my favorite movies of all time, and he wrote that. And it goes on and on. I mean, we could just talk about every movie he's ever done, but I know I said Terms of Endearment, and Mark's looking at me like, okay, yeah. That's the one you're gonna go for.
But that's the thing, though.
That stuff, Bonnie. I get emotional.
But going into films and stuff too, and you see like that's the stuff with Bonnie. You'll see her in these movies, and something that Mark and I actually were able to see. Bonnie has a movie that just was recently released on DVD. Yeah.
No, actually, we just got a limited release.
Okay, good.
In L.A. and New York, it's gonna be L.A., New York, and Delaware. I don't know what that's about. It's going to be at the Sunset Lemley, which is cool. The Best and the Brightest. So it'll be out for a couple weeks, and they're doing a bunch of screenings all over the country, and all these little screenings have been selling out. Yeah, people love the movie.
And that's the thing. So The Best and the Brightest is it's a movie that stars Bonnie, of course, and Neil Patrick Harris, who we'll talk about in a little bit. We mentioned.
You're working with all the.
That's what I'm saying. We mentioned Zach Morris, and now we had Doogie, and I think that's what he doesn't like to talk about Doogie, but we'll talk about that in a second.
He ain't here. We can talk about Doogie Howser. He's in a shopping mall delivering a baby right now.
But by the way, there was a Happy Gilmore mention.
Yes.
And Shooter McGavin
Chris
is in this
McDonald, the greatest, one of the greatest comedic actors to work with.
He is so funny.
Ever.
He is so funny in this movie.
So funny. Did you notice too that he's so funny that whenever he talks, you miss the next four lines. Because every screening I go to, I'm like, God, they're missing the next 4 lines because he's so funny that no one's hearing anything else.
He's such a bizarre character in this movie, and he just nails it.
He nails it.
It really is a good ensemble cast. The movie, again, is called The Best and the Brightest. And Bonnie and Neil Patrick Harris are a couple who are trying to, they have a kid, and they're moving to New York to pursue a dream, and it's trying to get this kid into the most prestigious pre-K or kindergarten boarding school. And I like the movie because no one person is really it's a real ensemble movie. Like, you guys all take turns having scenes that you just crush. Like, Bonnie will crush a scene, and then Neil Patrick Harris crushes when they have Christopher McDonald come in.
And then Peter Serafinowicz, that British comedian, plays his friend. He is an and I didn't even know who he was, but he's a huge comedian in England.
He was also in
technically doesn't count.
Well, he was in that Couples Retreat movie as well.
But I don't know if you've ever seen it, but if you ever want to see he does impressions. That's his big thing.
Oh, really?
If you go on YouTube or just look up Peter, he had a show called the Serafinowicz Show, and it was a sketch comedy show. He wrote everything, and he did all the characters, and he does like old school impressions,
Like of who?
Like just he'll do
Sounds
Johnny.
Like Frank TV.
He'll just do like everyone from Johnny Carson to Paul McCartney but it's like an old-fashioned comedy show that they used to do, like where people would actually have to do all these characters. He is a brilliant comedian.
Yeah, his time, everyone's timing, everybody seemed like they were having a good time.
Amy Sedaris, I mean, who doesn't like her? Stranger
By the way,
Candy.
I watched some of her stuff on her interviews with David Letterman.
Hilarious.
Out of control, man.
He loves her. He has her on about 4 times a year.
Is that what it is?
Just because he loves her.
Yeah, you can tell that. But she plays like the woman who helps Bonnie and Neil Patrick Harris try to get their kid into this elite school.
It's a fun kind of window into that world of trying to get, because New York has so many kids running around, and there's very few elite.
And it's based on a true story. The writers went through that, trying to get their kids in private school. And I grew up in New York City and went to a private school. I was a scholarship kid. It was a big deal, but now you really do. You have to be like interviewing when you're pregnant. It's a joke. And they were sitting there going, they're 2 writers, comedy writers, and they were like, this is a movie. I mean, this is a joke. Like they're like, oh, you're too late. You're like, we have a 3-year-old. Oh, really? Like, And they wrote this movie about it because that's what really happened.
That's like first trimester stuff. You got to get that kid. You shove the application up there because the kid's got to fill it out.
So yes, I mean that movie. If you guys are in those areas that Bonnie mentioned,
I guess it's playing in Delaware too because the movie takes place in Delaware
but also
initially.
They're doing screenings. If you go to the bestandbrightestmovie.com, best N letter N, not end.
Okay.
You can see the schedule, and it's being played by request because they have people writing in, and the more requests they get, they'll rent out a theater, and it's amazing.
What about cable deal?
Yeah, we have a cable deal. It's going to come out on DVD, Netflix, and Amazon. But it's cool that it's going to get to be released in a theater for me because I've never had a movie that I'm the lead in in an actual movie theater. So I'm proud of that.
And I think that's the thing though too. And Mark and I actually said this afterwards, and it's not because we know you. We think you had the strongest performance in the movie for sure. And I mean, it's just like
I'm proud of that movie though. It's a real caper. It's a real it reminded me of A Fish Called Wanda when I read the script. There's like so much going on.
Very madcap.
It's madcap, and it's just. There's lots of and it's a good. The director described it as it's a good old-fashioned R-rated movie.
It's a hard rated R as far as because of language and just things that are kind of.
Yeah, but like back in the 70s and 80s, when you see Stripes, when you see 16 Candles, when you see these movies, they were an R-rated movie. When you saw Porky's, you would see some titties and you'd hear some curse words, and that was an R-rated movie. But now it's like. It's so politically incorrect. You can't do this. You can't do that.
Yeah, in our movie back when I was growing up, you learned something new about life.
Yes,
it was a discovery.
You'd sneak a movie at your friend's older sister's house, or maybe if you were me, and we'd watch movies that we weren't allowed to watch, and we saw the girls' boobs in 16 Candles when he's like, "Yeah, you're with Carolyn. She's a woman," and then they cut to boing, and she's totally naked, and we're like, "Oh my God,
we're so desensitized by it now, though."
My parents left town for the weekend. We rented Porky's and Boys to Men, and I learned about life.
Seriously,
Boys to Men, Boys in the Hood.
Risky Business.
I think I listened to Boys in the Hood.
What about Risky Business?
Listen to me. I sound like a Bonnie, I want you dancing to those Boys in the Men.
And I wish we had a camera. He's on a rocking chair right now too. It's amazing. But yeah, so that's the movie is definitely worth watching.
Go see the movie, and if you're in LA, go check out the Sunset Lounge on Sunset, and I'd appreciate it because it's a pretty good movie.
It's a fun theater too. Harloff and I saw a movie there one time. We saw James Spader getting popcorn, and he looked pretty hungover. It was fun.
It looked like he had a couple of those popcorns. Okay, now we're going. Now the thing is, now we're in film here. Now Bonnie definitely went back into the TV roots, and she just booked a pilot called Other People's Kids.
Other People's Kids, it's a pilot. So what's happening with it?
Yes. Well, before we say what's happening with it, we'll say again. You talk about how she gets to work with these classic actors. She's working with Judith Light, aka Angela.
Another one
from Who's the Boss?
Yeah. Wow. Seriously, Who's the Boss, Cheers, and Designing Women were my favorite shows, and I've now worked with all the women. And my mom was like Angela. My mom was like a single working mom that wore those big glasses and had the hair. So when I got to work with her, I was like, my mom and I used to watch this together, and now I'm working with you. I mean, it's unbelievable.
That's really cool.
And she's one of the funniest women on the planet. No joke. She can take a line. I mean, there are just people that are just so good at what they do, and they get underrated because they're famous, like you said, for that one character. Yeah. So they don't really get the credit. But she just got nominated for a Tony for Lombardi on Broadway. There's this play Lombardi. I didn't even know.
Yeah, she is in Lombardi, which is about Vince Lombardi.
I hear it's unbelievable.
Dan Lauria, the dad from The Wonder Years, plays Vince Lombardi.
Yep.
And apparently,
is that the only play you've ever even known about in your entire life?
Because it's about Lombardi. Yeah, but all these guys, these sports, kind of guys going to this play, they've never been to the theater in their life. They have no idea what Broadway was.
And they're crying.
And they're weeping.
Grown men are weeping openly. Apparently, I hope I get to go see it, but apparently it's like if you're a fan of any sport, especially, obviously this guy had such a crazy career, but it's amazing, apparently.
I think it closes in June, so if you go soon.
If the show gets picked up, I will go. So we're waiting.
Me.
Well, that being said, so you finished shooting about 2-3 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, okay. And
also Tom Arnold is in it.
Right, Tom Arnold's in it.
So funny.
Jesse Barfield from the Yankees. Oh, wait, not Jesse Barfield.
Jesse Bradford.
Jesse Barfield formed one half of the Jerry Curl outfield along with Roberto.
And the amazingly talented Rachel Harris, who I think is one of the funniest women right now. I don't know if you remember.
Which one's Rachel Harris?
You know Rachel Harris. She was the girlfriend in the Hangover that Ed Helms is trying to run away from.
Right. And he's yelling.
She's the mom in she's the mom in Diary of a Wimpy Kid. She was on the Daily Show.
Yeah, no, I totally know.
She's been if you put in Rachel Harris, she's probably been on every single she's done stand-up, she's done it all.
Right. Yeah, no. So can you give a quick breakdown of what the show's about?
Yeah, basically I play a divorced mom with 2 young kids, and I start dating a younger guy, and he's totally in over his head, and he has to deal with my insane family and my crazy in-laws played by Judith and Tom, and my crazy husband, and it's just basically it's like kind of like a Modern Family-esque type of thing, which is kind of true what's going on now. So many people get divorced and remarried and have young kids.
So Harloff can get the
you're making me confused. I'm like, wait,
I'm trying to figure it out, because the thing is too, again, we know Tom Arnold and Judith Light are going to be the crazy in-laws, and here's what I want to make sure, because once this show's a big hit, Bonnie's like, oh, I'm not doing that Schmoes No podcast anymore.
Oh, I'll always do it. You guys are my friends.
So, well, that's great. I mean,
as long as you get me sugar-free coffee bean.
That's it. That's all we gotta do. That's what we do.
Right. The last month, I've gotten Bonnie a sugar-free blended vanilla whip and like 9 plates of buffalo wings.
He did. You so hooked us up, by the way. We went to see Mark. We went to see brought people to see Mark do a stand-up, and he hooked us up. He got us buffalo wings, quesadilla, free beer.
Wow. Show at Chili's.
And it was amazing because my boyfriend's mom had never been
on random tables at TGI Fridays.
My boyfriend's mom had never been to the Comedy Store, and that was always like something she'd always wanted to do. And I was like, I could get you in the Comedy Store. And Christian, I emailed Christian. He's like, yeah, you can go see Ellis. And so not only did I get to take her there, but we were getting free everything. She was like, wow, you know a lot of really big people.
That's awesome. That's the only I can't get you into the standard.
Cut to Mark just kind of standing there with like a frown on his face.
No, Bonnie, I wanted to ask you, have you thought about doing any Broadway at all?
That's what I wanted to do was Broadway. I was a musical theater major, and I was like that annoying kid that saw Annie and would sing Tomorrow for everyone.
So that's where the root. That's where
that was my root. That was my dream in life. Sound of Music would come on every year. I mean, that was that's what I really wanted to do, and I want to do that someday, but I just haven't had the opportunity or gotten the jobs, but hopefully I will.
I think you shave Harloff's head, you got a Daddy Warbucks thing going on with him.
Totally.
So this could happen.
Here's one thing, because of course we are at the Schmoes No Movies, and we talk about the stuff that's coming out this summer. It's our summer movie season. I wanted to ask you, Bonnie, what movies this summer are you looking forward to seeing?
Well, I'm really excited to see Thor. I know that you guys have mixed feelings about it.
No mixed. No mixed? No, we both liked it a lot.
You both liked it?
Yeah.
Once the movie came out, we were both a little precarious watching the
trailer.
Right. That's what I was thinking about, because I watch all your reviews.
Yeah.
But I love
very good.
But I can't believe, and I listen to talk radio all the time. I listen to Howard Stern. Everyone across the board says it's a great, super well done,
it is
great, not over the top, and that the only weak link is Natalie Portman.
I agree.
She's the weak link.
Well, yeah, you know what? I haven't
because she's too little, because she's too small, right?
Well, my biggest thing. I mean, that has a part to do with it. My biggest thing with that movie was that, and I said this in our review, is that I don't believe that when it comes to these big movies that she connects to the material. I just think that she seems like, you watch something like Black Swan where it's like a near perfect performance. Perfect. And then it's just like she just doesn't. She's just there. She's literally there for the paycheck.
I agree. I don't think she belongs. And also, I just feel that those types of movies. I was so happy to see movies where they cast new people. I get so excited when you see a guy beat out a bunch of actors. Give people a chance. There's so many good talent out there, and
he was awesome.
She did not need to be in that movie. You could have cast an unknown girl. I bet that could have just been. Chemistry. You would have totally believed her because you wouldn't have known anything else about her.
Yeah, you didn't need to hire somebody of her caliber. I don't think she certainly. I don't think her perforance distracted.
It's like what you said about the movie you thought I could have done with Jennifer Connelly.
Labyrinth.
No, the Labyrinth. I wish.
Movie.
The one with Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
That just came out. The Ron Howard one.
You said that it was like
the Dilemma.
Yeah. Well, you said it was like, why was Jennifer Connelly in that movie? She's an Oscar winner. What was she doing in that movie?
She didn't need to be in that.
It's
film.
like maybe I just want to hang out with two funny guys for a couple months,
and just get paid for it.
I mean, again, maybe Natalie Portman. She just come off this huge movie, Black Swan. Maybe it was like she just wanted to go hang out in New Mexico.
Well, I think it also was the fact that they probably Hemsworth hasn't really proven himself. So you got this guy.
But I hear he's great.
He's amazing.
He proves himself in this movie.
And I love Kenneth Branagh, so I'm excited to see him.
It's a really good movie. Thor too is that it gives you a chance to nerd out as much as you want to. You can just go and watch a nice superhero movie, and it's fun to watch. If you really want to geek out, like what we did, it sets up the Avengers movie that's coming out next summer.
Right.
So you can choose your own level of.
Well, I read some Thor comic when I was a kid. I was into comic books, and I liked Thor because Christian knows I'm obsessed with medieval history and English history and Merlin.
There's a World of Warcraft players that are listening.
Right right now. Yeah. You think you had fans before.
That's all I read about. It's like kind of it's like I've read every book on King Arthur there is, and like so I hear for someone like me that I'll like really, because I read the Thor comics.
It's really my big this is where we differ, Mark and I, is that like I love, and we both love the Asgard stuff that takes place. It looks amazing. The feel is epic. When they get to Earth, there's a couple. Kat Dennings is a little too shticky for me, but it doesn't take away from the movie. It's just.
What do you think about Superman renouncing his citizenship?
Yeah,
the new scandal. Have you heard this?
No, what happened?
The last comic, Superman was upset about.
He's more about world. You know how he's just an American citizen. He's not an American citizen anymore. He's a world citizen.
Yeah, he renounces his citizenship because he wants to be a citizen of the world. And like, I guess all these people are in an uproar and you know, going crazy at Marvel because they're like, how could you do this? How could you make Superman?
DC.
Well, you know,
DC. Whoa, sorry.
He's trying to.
Sorry guys.
America.
I just lost a few fans.
But that's right.
Like Captain America is the guy from America, so maybe Superman is like, oh, really? You can do America? That's global.
My one thing about movies, and I have to say this, I do not understand. They're doing another Superman movie. I do not understand why every single Superman movie has to be the same story.
It's not going to be this one.
How he was born, how he came to... No, it is.
No,
they're
going to... No. They're doing an origin part of it, but they're not...
Why are they doing another Superman? They just did one, and it was...
Yeah, but it was...
We were talking about this.
Well, that's the thing.
It's where do you draw the line as far as rebooting franchises?
Why? Why can't you pick up from later on?
And I think Christian, more than me, likes the fact that you can do it. I don't like it as often as it happens, but if you look at the Batman movies, that franchise is such a good property. It needed to be rebooted, and it was done very well.
Right, but it was rebooted, and then they move on now. Each movie they move on. Superman, how many times are we going to hear about how he came to Earth?
I know.
His adoption. It's like,
if it's set up quick, I don't mind. What I had a problem with is like the same Lex Luthor story. No more Lex Luthor.
Yeah, but that's another one. Lex Luthor. Like, what about all these other people, dude? Like, I mean, it's the same people.
They're gonna change. They're gonna change it up. Although I'm not.
If they cast Lindsay Lohan, I'm gonna leave the company.
No, they already cast. It's Amy Adams' Lois Lane.
All right. Amy's a great actress.
Yeah, they're gonna have. The only thing it's a whole other podcast, but Zack Snyder is scares the hell out of me directing this thing, but Nolan's involved. But that's another thing. How we doing, Cheese? All right.
My other movie I can't wait to see, which I'm going to see with your wife, Bridesmaids.
Now here's the thing with Bridesmaids.
Well, here you go.
No. Here, listen.
We're seeing this this week.
We're seeing
this movie's coming out next week.
Yeah, we're seeing Bridesmaids. By the time it comes.
By the
time this airs, we would have seen.
I'm going to see it with your wife because I was a bridesmaid.
Yes. Now, Bridesmaid, which I'm sure she'll be sooner or later to you, but that's a whole other podcast as well. So the movie itself, Judd Apatow produced this thing. I think the problem with this movie to start with is the name. And I think that the name... Listen.
Okay.
Because not for women. Women are thrilled and excited for this film. I have a feeling this movie's going to be funny for both men and women, but I think that men will be turned off a little bit by the name because they're all automatically going to go, oh, chick flick.
But that's the problem with film, which I think, the Tina Feys and the Amy Poehlers and thank God, now Kristen Wiig, being a comedian, wanting to do comedy my whole life, it's like people don't believe that women can carry movies still. And that's why Baby Mama was such a big success. It was two chicks in their late 30s. Mm-hmm. And it made a lot of money. It was like, and it was like, oh, shocking! Women actually are comedians and can be funny. And I think that's why I hear what you're saying. But I think that's why they're doing this. It's like the poster's all chicks.
Just change the title.
What do you want them to change?
Why? It's about bridesmaids.
I don't think Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph like the title.
You know what he wants to call it? Groomsmen with tits.
No, I don't think they like the title.
You know what? Guys would pay to see that.
Read Entertainment Weekly.
Groomsmen with boobs.
They didn't. I'm telling you, they didn't want that title either.
That was the funniest script I read. I told Christian I auditioned with Kristen Wiig.
Bridesmaids.
I auditioned with her. I absolutely love her. She's one of my heroes. I think she's brilliant. She's so nice. She's so cool. I auditioned. She's the most generous actress. She was like, "What do you want to try?" We were improvising. She was so like, "Thank you so much for coming in." Could not be a nicer person. I read the script. It's one of the first scripts, and I don't know when. I laughed every single page.
All right.
It's going to be hilarious.
I've heard some things. Yeah, I've heard good things about it. Obviously, it's appealing to women
unless
more than
men
simply because it's kind of chick flicky. Because it is, because it's got women, as the leads. But there's no way to title that movie where you're not selling it.
But it's basically The Hangover with chicks.
It's The Hangover with women, yeah.
Right. All right. Well, we'll see how it comes out.
What you want the title of the movie to be changed to?
Groomsmen with boobs.
Apatow to change his name to the producer 40-year-old version, or the director
exactly.
40-year-old
All right.
version. That's what
I know, really. That's so true.
Every movie. We get it. Yeah, that was 5 years ago. All right.
All right. Well, guys, that's our podcast, and I have to again thank the lovely and talented
and beautiful
Bonnie Somerville.
This was so fun. I love you guys.
Yeah,
awesome.
well, you're gonna come back. Bonnie's gonna do some classic reviews
Definitely
with us.
Classic.
Yeah, Bonnie, thank you again for doing our classic review of The Princess Bride, because I'd never seen it until I did the review.
And a lot of people saw that review, and it's amazing the feedback, because that movie really was a generation.
Yeah,
for a lot of us.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that it's a really great.
My
movie.
top 10 desert island flicks. I'd have to have Princess Bride.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, and we're gonna actually be on. We're going back on the Reels channel, and we're going back on next week to actually talk about famous brides. Famous brides and famous grooms in movie history, and Humperdinck is one of them.
Oh, he's got to be. Yeah.
And also, if I can I plug my album too?
Of course, please.
Christian mentioned that I have an album, and if you go to iTunes, Bonnie Somerville, I have an EP out, 5-song EP. It's pretty cheap. It's $4.99.
Yeah, we'll put the link.
Probably pick up a copy at the Hotel Cafe May 24th.
May 24th, and also the song from Garden State soundtrack that I have is finally available as a single, which it never was, and you can buy the single for finally, and without buying the whole soundtrack.
I'm completely bummed that we didn't get to touch on
Garden State.
But you know what? Now it gives we George Costanza her. Now we forgot something, so she has to.
I have to come back.
That's right. So next time Bonnie comes back, we're going to talk about Garden State.
And you could have me on. We could discuss Bridesmaids, because I have a feeling that we might have a good argument about.
The recap of Groomsmen with Tits.
Well, next time you come back in, we'll talk about how you're going to be a big superstar, because this show's going to be a big hit.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. That's right. Schmoeville.com. We'll put all the links to Bonnie's stuff in the description. And for myself, Mark Ellis, and Cheese, signing off.
Yep. And bestinbrightest.com.
Yes, best letter N brightest themovie.com. Best and brightest themovie.com.
Perfect. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.